Okay, we're live. Hello, everyone. Good morning if you're on the West Coast like me. I'm super excited to be here with Jess Rainberg of ELIXR. We are talking about matrescence and leadership and navigating motherhood and career. And if you're like me, you only learn the word matrescence from Jess. So she is the expert. I'm super excited to talk to her today. Before we get into it, I wanted to just share a little bit about Jess's background. She is a corporate advisor and female leadership expert. She left a very successful career in biotech to found ELIXR, dedicating herself to closing systematic gaps in the workplace for women and mothers. And I have a science and genetics background, so I love that she leverages a research-backed scientific approach to inspire female leaders in the mid-career and motherhood at work stages to revitalize and accelerate their future path planning and provide matrescence foundations and awareness through her self-coaching framework. Hi, Jess.
Hi, that was a mouthful. I appreciate it, Ashley. You did a great job.
No, it's amazing. I'm super excited to have you here. I was so inspired by hearing your background and how you navigated your own early stages of motherhood and work. I would love if you could just tell us a little bit more about what that experience was like and how you handled raising young kids while being in a very intense work environment.
Oof, yes. Well, first of all, I just want to say thank you so much for having me. I know we connected a while ago, and I'm so happy our worlds are colliding today on this LinkedIn Live. So thank you very much for having me and giving this story, this journey, this experience, this mission a voice. So thank you. I climbed the corporate ladder. I did the thing that most of us as our younger selves are told to do, and graduated college and built a life and identity around achievement and title and awards and accolades. And, I thought motherhood would just kind of be additive, like, okay, I'm ready to have children. Check the box. Let's do it. And what I realized was the preparation to become a mother and have a child was so focused on everything except myself, my identity that had been so built and tied to career. And it was shocking. It was shocking. Maternal instinct did not come easily to me. I'm sure many women listening can relate to the fact that you have this picture in your head of how working motherhood and motherhood will be. And when it's not that way and you have an identity tied to achievement and career, you feel like a failure, like you didn't do it right. You're not good at it. And so 5 years ago, it kind of all came to a head because it turned into a significant identity crisis. Like at the peak of my career, I did all the things my 12-year-old self said, you did it, you did the thing. I had no idea who I was. I looked in the mirror and I was like, what is the purpose of all of this? Who am I? I don't understand what motherhood feels like for me. I was so disconnected from the experience. And I went through this amazing personal growth journey, like really, really transformative. I got to know myself. I went through coaching and therapy and everything changed. This world opened up that was so frustrating to be a highly educated professional woman and not know the basics of what it means to be a woman and a mother. And so now my entire mission is surrounded around that experience, which is democratizing my coaching journey I went through. I went through years of accredited training, and I believe everybody needs to know those things. I believe women deserve to thrive with information. Information is power. And so my personal experience combined with all of that growth journey and education now is ELIXR, coaching and consulting, which is empowering women and working mothers. And empowerment means like you get to control your own experience. For me, 5 years ago, I had no control. So yeah. I really appreciate you allowing me to share that experience.
I love that, Jess. That's so valuable. And I think it's so interesting. We are raised with these very corporate standard definitions of success. And even I'm sure you've experienced this stepping away to start ELIXR, to start Sundays. A big mental shift I had to make was like, what does success mean to me? Like, I'm not going to get a 4 on my annual review, and I'm not going to get a title bump and things like that. So redefining that, I think, is so key to kind of taking control of where you want to go. And especially when you add in all the complexities of matrescence at the same time.
You nailed it. I mean, your newborn, your middle schooler, your high schooler, your collegiate athlete, it's really not going to give you an award that said you did it, you get a raise, right? And like that's so shocking that you have to be able to give yourself awards and support yourself through this journey. And yeah, I mean, the shift to entrepreneurship, again, another identity shift, but I have the skills and tools to support myself through this now. So yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, so we're using the word matrescence. Can you actually, I mentioned earlier that you taught me what matrescence means. So can you tell our listeners what it means and where it came from?
Yeah, I'll tell you how I came across it, um, and realizing that this word matrescence has been around since the 1970s was quite infuriating. Matrescence is the existential journey of motherhood. And when I went through my personal growth journey and started building out this coaching business and consulting practice and figuring out what I was going to do, I knew I wanted to focus on motherhood. So I went searching and I found all these books and experts and research and studies. And so for years, I combed through the literature of this word in this world. And when I first found it, when I first read that word, actually, like I remember sobbing to my husband because it was so shocking at the beginning. And had I had this word in this world, maybe it would have been different for me. So now I get to share what this means. Matrescence transforms women from the moment you decide you want to be a mother. The moment you decide you want to pursue motherhood and you're in your fertility journey, early motherhood, when you walk in your door with a newborn, middle motherhood, menopausal motherhood, it happens on a biological level, physically, psychological, the identity shifts, relationships, you shed friendships, you manage new marriages. It transforms how you show up in the world at work, economically, societally. I mean, everything changes, yet this word that's been around since the 70s has been invisible. So the research of matrescence, the foundations of matrescence bridged with coaching frameworks, ooh, I mean, that changes the game for women and mothers. It empowers you to know that you are not alone. Matrescence is the remodeling of your brain. We can see brains rewire on MRI for the first 2 years. Postpartum is a myth. It doesn't end at 6 weeks, goes on for 2 years. We talk about the mommy brain like it's a bad thing. The mommy brain is incredibly powerful. In fact, that feeling of fogginess in early motherhood actually means that you're attuning to your newborn and you're going to show up more gritty, more emotionally intelligent later in life. Matrescence is the word that builds worlds of support for mothers. And so it's really important for me to share in the work I do for working mothers, because 90% of women are going to become mothers by the age of 44. Yet nobody knows the word for the experience they're going through. How is that? How is that possible?
Yeah, that it's so crazy that things like that get hidden. And I think that is common across kind of the medical landscape of women's health in general. But I'm so grateful that you're bringing this word to light and giving, I think it's powerful to give a name to it so that we can acknowledge that it's actually happening. There are real changes happening, and we shouldn't necessarily expect that we're just going to be the same exact person that we were before having children as we are after.
Hands down. And you nailed something so critical. Remember, my background's biotech and rare disease specifically. We don't really do a good job at prevention. We treat symptoms, we diagnose people, and we tell them how to feel better potentially. With matrescence, it's prevention from potential postpartum anxiety, depression. What would that world look like if you knew what you were experiencing potentially was normal for some? Burnout. If you had a name to the experience you were going through, you can build the support you need in your own individual experience. So matrescence is also preventative measures to poor outcomes at every stage of motherhood. So yeah, I think it's probably the collision of my clinical background with the modern world of coaching frameworks.
Yeah, that's so wonderful. And we didn't chat about this before, but is there kind of a medical side of matrescence that's like getting more attention at all right now?
Yeah, there's so the mother of matrescence, who is Dana Raphael, coined the term in 1970s. Dr. Arlie Athan is doing a ton of research around like how I spoke to the prevention of poor maternal outcomes, and how OBGYNs and our society and the infrastructure can be built to support women going through it. Think about it as adolescence. We know adolescence is so transformational for children moving into adulthood. So the school counselors are prepared, right?
Yeah.
And their pediatricians are prepared, and parents were all prepared to navigate, hey, your body's going to change. Hey, your hormones are going to change. And for matrescence, it's not discussed or openly supported. So Dr. Arlie, her research, there's research happening at academic hospitals and centers. I have a sociologist now partnering, and we're doing research around the world of matrescence and modern motherhood. So the more information and studies we can bring to this word, the more we discuss it and bring visibility. I think this is just the beginning for modern moms today.
I love that. That's so important. And you talked about it a little bit, but are there specific areas you see matrescence affecting working moms in their work lives?
Everywhere. I do work inside of organizations. I do work inside of communities, do very limited one-on-one, but I can tell you that there are so many themes to matrescence, how it shows up in menopausal motherhood, middle motherhood, which is like so invisible in the workplace. We're barely supporting moms in early motherhood with maternity leave and postpartum support, return to work programs. And it's like this middle motherhood place for me seems like such a beautiful place to create impact. And the themes there are identity, self-discovery, identity crisis, visibility. It feels quite invisible to be the woman at the center of career and motherhood. 84% of post-workshop participants in my world say that matrescence at work matters, because again, it's that I feel validated in my experience. I know I'm not broken or alone. This is normal. And all of a sudden, everyone wants to come together and start talking about it. And I think we can agree that the theme that you show up at work like you don't mother, you mother like you don't work, it puts all the pressure on you to be this super mom, and super mom doesn't exist. We're humans trying our best. The other layer I would say that shows up so significantly, whether it's a new returning to work mom or somebody that has peaked in their career on a leadership level, is juggling and navigating ambition with presence at home with your child. It's really difficult for women to wrap their brains around what that working motherhood experience is. Like, I want to succeed. I love my career. I mean, look, I'm building a business, but I'm also raising a 10-year-old and 7-year-old. So how do we build that recognition that you can still have your own dreams and desires as a woman, and you can also be the most present and intentional mother at home? And so those conversations are always at the top of mind for the women I engage with.
Yeah, I love that so much. I think that it's such a struggle for a lot of the families that we talk to too. And one I read, have you read Career and Family by Claudia Golden?
I haven't.
She won the Nobel Prize actually for this research, which is super interesting. I think we hear a lot about the wage gap between men and women, but her research kind of shows that actually the wage gap is not that big until you reach parenthood. And then once you reach parenthood, you have this difference where someone needs to be on call for kids, on call for the family. And whether it's like by choice or it just happens due to cultural expectations, a lot of times that ends up being the woman. And that the work that we tend to reward the most is the work that's kind of on call. She calls it greedy work, where it's like you can do it, you're willing to put in those extra hours. And I think it's so interesting as we look at like those next stages of your career and kind of how it aligns with this middle motherhood period of like, what are you prioritizing? And also as a person running a company now, I think a lot about like, how do we evaluate what good work looks like? Because I've been in a lot of organizations where I knew that good work meant I was the first person to respond to a Slack message, or like I checked in before I went to bed to make sure I didn't miss anything. But I know that that isn't actually what good work means. Like just being responsive does not mean I'm doing the best work. And so I think it's really interesting as an employer to think about how do we evaluate that, and how do we think about how that aligns with parenthood now too.
Yes. I have like goosebumps when we talk about this. So I had a conversation with a small size biotech organization yesterday, and building out the world of support there looks like all of the things you just spoke about. One, what are the things that got me to this point in my career, like the good girl mentality, the good girl syndrome, say yes, do it all, kill yourself in your role, that got you here. Now, as a working mom in the middle of your career, those same things aren't going to get you to the next stage. So from an individual perspective, the work that I do is, how do I shed those things that don't serve me anymore and actually don't serve my career? And then on the flip side, how do I build cultures of coaching inside organizations at the leadership level? Statistically, research shows that performance reviews for women are not equal to men in the workplace. Meaning, are you doing things correctly? Have you done good work? How hard are you working? And for men's performance reviews, it's like visionary, big picture thinking. Like, it's a lot of, we believe you're doing a good job, right? And so having that clarity from a leadership level of, how am I judging good work? How am I vocalizing that out to my entire team so that everybody's judged equally? And so that has to happen internally from working mothers to say, like, I have boundaries in place. This is how I'm going to show up at work. My work is good. And as a leader, how can I make sure I'm building that world of support, performance reviews? Because at the end of the day, working mothers also need to advance in their careers. We need more women in leadership, but we also need more moms in leadership. And so, like what you just said, judging good work, building those worlds inside organizations from the leadership perspective, they get moms into the workplace because we're looking at work differently.
Yeah, I love that so much. I think that that's one of my biggest goals with Sundays, is to get more moms into leadership roles, because I really think that's the only way that we can redefine how we overall think of family and work, because we need representation, people who are actually experiencing this, to define those boundaries and what work looks like. I'm really curious. You mentioned talking to people about shedding things in their career that don't serve them anymore. Are there trends that you see repeatedly with the parents that you work with?
Oh, yes. So many trends. So you and I spoke about this before we went live today, but I'm building a self-coaching course because, like, think about it. If I want to democratize coaching, my experience of the years getting certified to coach was transformative for me as a person. I shed so many things that didn't serve me just by simply being educated to coach others.
Yeah.
So it shouldn't just be for organizations that are going to hire one-on-one career coaches. It shouldn't just be for women who are going to pay out of their pocket to go get coached. Everybody deserves to be their own coach. And all of a sudden, you become an observer of your life. You get to kind of step outside of your habits, your mannerisms, your behaviors, rather than just being subjective to these habits you've had your whole life. So I'll give you an example in the self-coaching course. What you just said is like what shows up with like some of the good girl conditioning or behaviors. And I spoke about boundaries. What I can tell you is, we know when you don't have boundaries in place at work, or in your friendships, or in the PTA volunteer hours at school, that boundaries or a lack thereof actually leads to resentment. So some of the habits I can say that I witness quite frequently is saying yes. And we see organizations go to the yesers in the companies because they know they'll say yes. They're like, oh, we can count on Ashley. She'll do the extra work and project. But we need the Ashley, the moms, the women inside organizations to say, I'm at bandwidth. I'm going to put a boundary on my time, my mental health, and you're going to have to find somebody else to do the work. Knowing that, especially with defined performance reviews, that it's not going to inhibit your success. But habits like saying yes and not having boundaries in place, when you say yes to other things, you say no to yourself and your mental health and your well-being. And then it leads to resentment, disengagement, dissatisfaction at work. So things like that. I would also say shedding habits of self-sacrificing. Being a good mom doesn't mean you have to sacrifice your well-being for everybody else. Being a good employee doesn't mean you have to self-sacrifice for everybody else's well-being. And from the ages of 7 to 12, we're so conditioned to behave, dress, do, be for everybody else. And we don't actually go inward. And there's this whole inner world waiting for women and mothers to know what it feels like to feel aligned and intentional and confident with your own world and life. So yeah, there's a lot of shedding to be done. And still 5 years now, in my experience, I'm shedding every day. I'm still learning. And that's the human experience, is just growing and knowing that at the end of the day, your goal and mission is to feel validated in your experience, to love yourself more than anybody else, to be able to handle change because the only constant in work and life and motherhood is change. That's it, is hurdles.
Yeah. So powerful. We are getting some amazing comments from people listening about how powerful it is for them to hear the word matrescence and to understand what these changes are. So I'm so excited, Jess. And the thing that you said about, I didn't know this developmentally about being 7 to 12 and how much you're learning to appease the outside world. I always am like, I have a couple of nieces and nephews, and I'm always so intrigued by how much, like, especially the girls are kind of absorbing all of these like outside feelings and taking that upon themselves. And I notice myself every day having to like push out some of those feelings of like wanting to just make other people happy or knowing what those standards are for other people. So interesting. And I think that as you're emerging as a mother, that sounds even more important.
It's critical. I think the most beautiful part of self-coaching and realizing these invisible parts of our lived experience, our children witness it. So I actually have a 10-year-old boy, right? And I can see some of the habits of like, I'm going to grin and bear it. I'm going to get through this and muscle through, like the rigidness of like the masculinity part of the world. No one ever taught me how to speak kindly to myself in my life. So I was quite critical. I would always look at all the things that were going wrong in my life instead of what was going right, because I didn't know the inner voice or inner world existed. So I get to talk about those things with my son. And when he's up on a pitching mound, struggling, and like the hardest of hard for him in that moment, he's not performing well. I have goosebumps talking about it. I know he's going to speak kindly to himself. I got this. You can do this, Leo. I will watch him take a deep breath, because we talk about the fact that you're activating your parasympathetic nervous system by simply taking a deep breath. Like those things that are foundational to human flourishing, it shouldn't be on you as a woman and a mother to find out and then hope our children end up okay. This is generational changes happening. Impacts the bottom line of companies. It impacts you, your burnout, your mental health, your well-being, impacts the next generation. It has to happen. These are changes that have to happen.
I love it. Okay. One thing we were talking about before we got on, and that I haven't shared very widely, but I'm expecting my first in March of next year. I really started Sundays because of my own mom and her experience in the workforce. And it's super interesting as I enter this phase of life to think about how excited but also scared I am, because I do care a lot about my career and being able to build Sundays and be impactful there. I was wondering if you could share any advice you have for new parents, or also how to think about like what to expect in these different phases of parenthood and what might be ahead.
Yes. Okay. First of all, we're going to practice together. Deep cleansing breath. Ashley, keep it in your back pocket for your entire motherhood experience. Yeah. That's number one.
That's
Breathing through matrescence. First of all, congratulations. I am so celebrating you. I am so excited for this journey for you. Motherhood is so beautiful. It's such a juxtaposition of feelings through pregnancy, through early motherhood, middle motherhood, the empty nesters I work with when their children are leaving their homes for the first time. And so the first thing I would say is get comfortable with two things happening at once, with loving this human, loving your experience of growing something, while also feeling so anxious, nervous, overwhelmed, scared. And that's completely normal. There's nothing wrong or broken with you. You can feel all things at once. I think the advice is knowing that you can't control very much in this world except your own inner world. And so what do you need? What works for you to maintain some piece of control in life? Again, that's empowerment, right? Is being able to go inside yourself, ask yourself what you're feeling, what your needs are. And nobody teaches mothers that. For women who have built companies or careers, you will lose control in a way you haven't experienced before. Sleep deprivation, sick babies, doctor's appointments and visits. And that's the journey and experience. And so I would say, whatever pictures you hold so true in your head, know that you're allowed to be open to all the creative possibilities that could happen. Your motherhood experience will be so unique to you in your journey. And it's beautiful and it's hard. And in between the hard is another little tiny fleeting beautiful moment. And so keep finding the good throughout. and know that this transformational journey you'll go through is seasonal. It's cyclical. Once you come up for air, you'll meet a new version of self, a new experience in your motherhood journey. And that at the end of the day, you matter as a woman. Your dreams, your experience, your life, you can't give to baby, and you can't give to Sundays and all the other mothers you support without giving to yourself. And so I'm just wrapping you in so much love, and you're not alone. And I hope you feel so validated at every stage of your experience.
Thank you so much, Jess. I'm going to save the deep breath and I'm going to save that recording because I just need to listen to that every day.
Yes.
And I'm sure, I know that that stands true for a lot of our listeners too, and just feeling validated in their own experiences every day. I really appreciate it, Jess. And yeah, thank you for taking this LinkedIn Live at this very personal time for me when it's especially helpful and important.
Yes. One last thing. I know you talk about this on LinkedIn a lot because I see your posts and we know each other. Have your help lined up, have your VA, have all your people lined up to help you delegate and ask for help. Do it.
Yeah, I love it. I'm learning from so many people. I mean, I've learned from so many parents that I've been lucky to talk to about what the experience is like and how they are handling it. And it's different for everyone, what works and what doesn't work. So I have a lot of ideas. So I'll be sharing those as I learn more too. And the other thing I'm trying to do is also get my husband to practice and get ready for what that structure might look like too, so that we can be in it together. A thing I see is like a lot of people, when they do look for success, is it falls like on the mom primarily or for support. The moms are kind of in charge of doing all of the coordination with support. And I don't want that to fall on me because my brain will explode. So,
well, you're a human being, of course not. And you know, what's empowering is to know that if you do have a partner, if you do have a spouse, whoever is going to be a caregiver, is they actually go through their own form of matrescence. So your partner will go through patrescence, a term that exists. Caregivers who are very close with newborns will also go through neuroplastic remodeling. And so they go through their own journey as well. And I saw my husband and I's relationship really shift and change in those early days. I know for a fact I could not have done it without him. I had postpartum anxiety. I had postpartum depression. It was really hard at the beginning, and I was forced to lean on him. And what I realized now looking back was I felt like I was failing, and it was a weakness. And it was just a shift in our relationship. And again, it was a season. I came up for air and I figured out motherhood for me. But you nailed it. It's so unique. It's your own experience. And instead of looking out to benchmark good at social media, your friends, your family members, just remember that it's your own unique experience, and it just liberates you. It like takes away the ball and chain from this motherhood experience to say, what does good look like? Let me look outward.
Yeah, I love that. That was actually going to be my next question, is if you work with people at all and like redefining what success means after they have this huge life-changing experience.
Yes, it's so funny. I did a really fun workshop with Women in Innovation yesterday, a global organization supporting women. And the workshop was the neuroscience of empowerment. We talk a lot about redefining success. You know, success in motherhood, it really does relate to success in our careers too. Oftentimes we define success by what we should be doing. We live a lot of shoulds. We look outside of ourselves, or even we look to our past selves. So how often have you had this picture in your head since you were a teenager or collegiate student, early career, of like what you wanted to do your whole life? And you're almost like stuck on autopilot to go work and do for that definition you've been living for. A lot of the work I do in the self-coaching course, inside organizations, workshops, one-on-one, however I show up, is what does success mean for you professionally, as a mother, as a woman? And how can you make sure that they align with what matters most? What are your priorities right now? The beauty of having your own definitions in your life is at each stage, at each week or year, you get to redefine them because your priorities shift. The values and what matters most for you shifts. Your identity changes. You're not the same person that climbed that corporate ladder 10 years ago or 5 years ago or 1 year ago. So for right now, today, what does success mean for you? What matters most? And then you get to take really clear, aligned actions based off of your own internal definition rather than everybody else's.
That's so powerful. I think this might segue well. I was really curious. You brought up how you're building out your self-coaching course earlier. What does self-coaching mean? And do you have any favorite quick tools that we might be able to try today besides deep breath, which already is important?
Yes. My other favorite one, when you're anxious, you're about to talk or perform or go on a LinkedIn Live, you can do 2 short nostril breaths and 1
Mm,
long one. Great one. So self-coaching is transformative because what I realized in the years of getting educated on neuroscience and positive psychology, the coaching frameworks by the International Coaching Federation to show up as an accredited coach, was that the experience of learning and using them on myself and in my own life was really the transformation. One-on-one coaching is beautiful, but at the end of the day, I self-coach day in and day out. So in a self-coaching course, or when you are spending time on your own life self-coaching, it's checking in with yourself when, for example, you're going to say yes to that project. You're going to say yes to that project. You already know you're overwhelmed. You're already at bandwidth. Self-coaching is putting a step in before you take action to say, how will I feel after I take on this project? What will the outcome be? It's all of a sudden stepping out of your normal day to day and putting steps in place to protect your peace, to take care of yourself and to prioritize yourself. Self-coaching shows up with inner dialogue. Maybe you have a story that is replaying in your head. Self-coaching says, okay, you know what? You deserve to have some self-awareness in your life. What are those stories you're telling yourself? What is that inner critic telling you? So self-coaching gives you the tools, the skills, the frameworks, and the awareness to create change, to truly flourish in your life without having to depend on a coach outside of yourself. Or, I like to say also self-coaching shows up that it's like building a life toolbox. Dr. Martin Seligman, he wrote a book called Flourish. He's kind of the father of positive psychology. It's not all about good vibes only or happiness. Self-coaching says there's going to be bad days, there's going to be hard moments, but what do you need as a human to navigate all of those? So in my self-coaching course, there's tracks for working mothers, there's tracks for ambitious women leaders, and you get to build your own toolbox that you can use and depend on yourself to navigate all the obstacles and hurdles in life. Because at the end of the day, that's what it is. What do I need in my own unique experience to navigate this hard moment, to advance in my career, to go after the promotion, to self-advocate and ask for help? All these things that were so hidden to me until I went and paid tens of thousands of dollars to get certified as a coach. Everybody deserves to have these tools.
I'm so excited for more people in the world to get access to this. And I think I've had some great coaching conversations in the past, but they sometimes feel like a one-time thing. And it's like you're dependent on other people to like come in and give you advice. I love that having this set of tools and naming them and knowing that you can go to them at any time and pull them into your day-to-day. I think that's going to be so exciting. And I'm personally excited to really try it soon.
You have full access, Ashley.
Amazing. Okay, I'm super excited for that. I would love to hear a little bit more about what you do for organizations. Actually, my background was in healthcare benefits for a little bit. So one really interesting trend I noticed that you touched on is that organizations are starting to support people in early parenthood. I feel like that first year of parenthood, there is some support. But I noticed a huge drop off after that, where the next 18 or 20 years that you're still working and you have children that you're supporting are really missing in how we think about supporting working parents. So I'd love to hear how you think organizations can do better overall, and then also where you and ELIXR come in.
Oof, that is an exciting question, because in year one of build out with a company like this, I'm sure you can relate. You're trying to figure out, how do I serve the world? Where does my business show up? How do I scale and build this out and serve? So at the end of the day, ELIXR's goal is to empower women and working mothers. I like to say The system is definitely broken. We need to fix the system. But in the meantime, we also need to support women while we fix the system. And so the work we do inside of organizations is education. How can we inform and educate and provide insights like matrescence? Like I said, 84% of participants after a workshop say, man, matrescence matters. Why don't we know this exists?
Yeah.
Well, without the implementation part, we just provide really useful information. And after working in a Fortune 500 and watching speakers speak and being, really inspired in moments of workshops, it kind of like dies off a cliff afterwards. So, right, like you go, you're inspired, you have that aha moment, and then it ends. And I see it in the, Women and Allies group and the ERG groups I do. And so what I'm calling for the reform is not just educational workshops, but sustained and implementation for the women to be able to have self-coaching tools, for leaders to build out worlds of support for working mothers, to bring visibility to motherhood. This is not divisive work. It's not men versus women. But if we look at the motherhood tax that exists, for example, a male, a father, will receive a 6% pay increase for every child he has. A woman who experiences motherhood at work will receive a 4% decrease for every child she has. So it's not men versus women. It's not meant to be exclusive, but the work we're doing is to close the gender pay gap by bringing visibility to mothers and really giving them the tools and skills to advance in their career, to prevent burnout, to stay engaged, to be the change one woman and mother at a time. So it's tailored, it's bespoke build outs for organizations. And it's what I wish I had 10 years ago. And it's what I know to be the future of work to come.
I love that. So powerful. I'm just so excited about everything you're doing, Jess. I'm just going to keep repeating that. And then the last thing I wanted to hype, and hopefully we can get some of our listeners to participate, is I know you're doing some really exciting research. Can you tell us more about that?
Yes. So one of the things that was really difficult for me to wrap my brain around was that original coining of matrescence from the 70s, and kind of what we know of it today is it's very focused on this word becoming a mother. And what I know to be true is matrescence never ends. I know that because we can see it in grandmotherhood, the neuroplasticity that occurs into the brains of our mothers that are now carrying, or grandfathers. And so if we look at the fact that modern motherhood today requires such intensive parenting, sports, drop-offs, laundry, navigating homework, bullying at school, I mean, all the things, plus we're working more than ever before, intensive work, then we know that matrescence actually never ends because you're constantly meeting new versions of yourself. So I'm partnering with a sociologist, and ELIXR is going to sponsor, and we're going to start fielding survey respondents in the next couple of weeks to broaden, expand, and define modern motherhood, the holistic matrescence experience. And the goal is to uncover hidden aspects, hidden gaps to what well-being means in the modern motherhood experience. And I believe this is just the beginning of the research ELIXR will do in the future. We also do survey and research inside of organizations to benchmark the custom build-outs. But this specific research is to bring a new understanding of matrescence for 2024 mothers and the next generations to come.
That's amazing. I love research, and I think there just is not enough research in this space. So I was hoping Jess would already be able to tell us all the things she's learned, because I know she's going to learn so much, but we'll have to talk to you again and get a recap of all the learnings that you have from this.
Please. The research will be publicized. We've just submitted to the Museum of Motherhood to present our readout and our research in the spring. So please participate, mothers of all ages, all ethnicities, all backgrounds. I know Ashley said she would share the link out. If you have mothers, sisters, friends, please participate. Our goal is expansive, and we really want to use a broad range of geographical experiences and mothers in the workplace today.
Okay, I'm commenting it right now, so hopefully it will make it there. If you are on here, yeah, I think it made it there. I'll also comment again once I can get onto actual LinkedIn. But thank you so much, Jess. This was such a wonderful conversation. Just in case the links didn't make it there, where can anyone find out more information about you and the work you do online?
Perfect. Yes. Thank you so much for having me. I genuinely am so appreciative to you. I'm so excited for your motherhood journey. I'm so inspired by the work you're doing with Sundays. And they can find me on LinkedIn, Jess Ringenberg. You can also find me on my website, ELIXR, one I, because there's only one U, and elixircoaching.com. So we will support you inside of communities. You can also find me in the Society of Working Moms, a beautiful community of working mothers. I provide group coaching as the resident coach there. So find me in all the places. Just find me.
Okay, amazing. I'm posting now. I posted it on actual LinkedIn, so it should go through now.
Oh,
And I know I saw Kate on here earlier. I know she's one of the founder of Society of Working Mothers, and I've heard absolutely wonderful things about the group. Hopefully, I can join soon.
we
And
have expecting mothers. Come join us. We would
okay,
love to have you. It's such a beautiful, robust group of women working in corporate, entrepreneurs, founders, women at all stages of motherhood. And we know that loneliness is such an epidemic. Moms are looking for connection and a place to feel valued and supported. And it is a really special place for all mothers.
amazing. Thank you so much, Jess. As always, I learned so much from this conversation. I'm leaving feeling so excited and supported, even just from briefly talking to you. So I hope other people also have that experience. And I can't wait to talk again soon.
Thanks so much for having me. Have a beautiful day, Ashley.
You too. Bye,
Bye.
everyone.